How to Succeed at Preliminary Dressage is sponsored by Equifeast.
Hello and welcome to Horse and Country's How to Succeed in Prelim series. I'm Jenny Rudel, and in this episode we're going to be looking at what's included in a prelim dressage test. This is trainer Keith Robertson and we're here at Wild Farm Dressage, and today we're looking at this rider. Can you tell us a little bit about the horse and the rider for us?
Yeah, absolutely. This is Alice and her horse Amore. Alice is quite an experienced rider. She's done a lot of young horse riding and has produced some horses through the levels. But this horse in particular is quite new. She's quite young. She's a 5-year-old, but she was late backed, so she's only been back for a short while. So she would be a proper prelim horse.
So can you tell me what you'd expect to see in a prelim dressage test?
Yeah, sure. It's a way of showing the horses how to work through their basic gaits through a set series of movements that allow the judge to see the progression of that horse's training. So walk, trot, canter, all done in a way to influence and encourage the horse to get through the test. So all the movements will be ridden from a marker to a marker. It gives the rider a guide, but there's no real movement that has to be produced at a certain point, which then obviously puts the rider and the horse under a little bit of pressure.
So you're saying movements can happen in between markers. When it comes to accuracy, what is the judge actually looking for?
They're really looking for things as simple as when you're riding a 20-metre circle, that the circle itself is 20 metres. If you're given, say, a change of rein to ride from one marker to another, that you leave the track and then rejoin the track consistently and accurately. It's a plain and simple way for the judge to work out the progression of that horse and rider combination.
And often we hear about horse working in a consistent outline. At prelim, what should we be looking for? How round should the horse be? How forward going?
I would say generally the forwardness is the more important of the two. With the forwardness then comes the balance, the rhythm, and the horse learning to be more submissive. It will vary dependent upon the horse's level of training and obviously the rider's ability at that given stage. So there will be varying degrees, but if you have a horse that's generally soft and round and appears to be on the bit and travelling forwards in a rhythm, then that's the best possible way to enter into your prelim test.
So Keith, More's going round here. She's looking quite nice and relaxed. Is it time that you could run through some school movements with us?
Yeah, absolutely. Now we're in the trot, we can start to look at some of the movements that would be included in a prelim test. In the most basic sense, we're looking at 20 and 15-metre circles in the trot and allowing the horse to move around the outside of the school as well, getting them confident at the beginning of the test. And every prelim test is designed to encourage this confidence and this forward travel for the younger and more inexperienced horse. So Alice, if you just pop her slowly onto a 20-metre circle between B and E. This is the largest of the circles in a 20 by 60 school, designed to allow you to work the horse a little bit towards the flexion to the inside, but showing really that they're travelling forwards and with a decent rhythm underneath you, giving that horse confidence to come into your hand.
Yeah.
And it's the most basic of the movements that you'd find in the prelim test, and this should come fairly early on in your test. Sometimes it's a lead up to the canter work, and sometimes it's just a test of the rider's accuracy to perform that 20-metre circle.
Now, a lot of horses have problems coming down the centre line. Have you got any kind of tips that we could help before Alice starts working down the centre line for us?
Yeah.
What would you be looking for her to be doing?
The biggest tip obviously is practice,
Yeah.
like most things with horses. But in this case, it's a question of getting a strong enough rhythm that the horse is forwards and secure into the hand, so that when you ask them to turn, they are inclined to follow, but not having so much speed that they then find that 10-metre half circle difficult. In our arena here, obviously you can't enter from outside, so you are making a very distinct 10-metre half circle. If you're lucky at a test, at an arena in a test situation, you may be able to enter from the outside, which gives the horse a little bit more room. So in this case, we might just slow the horse a little on the turn so that we make really sure they can make the centre line accurately and give that judge the best impression possible for the first movement, which is obviously enter and track down the centre line.
And would they always be entering in the trot?
At prelim, yes, absolutely, they'll always enter in trot. And again, inclined to encourage the horse to travel forwards. There's no halt anywhere on the centre line for the first movement. It's always progress down and obviously track left or right, depending on the test.
Excellent. Could we get Alice to demonstrate?
Yeah, certainly. If you just finish that circle there, Alice, and then go large. we'll ride it slightly in reverse, but if you go large and come down the centre line from C, and just ask Amore to turn a little bit early so that worst case scenario you can slightly drift to the centre line rather than overshooting it and then having to pull her back onto line. So this is a lovely rhythm. We're allowing the horse to travel at a rate that she feels confident enough. That's fine. Circle once, that's no problem. Again, that's something that's going to happen when you go out to your first test. They catch an eye of something, they have a little spook. If you're outside the arena and before the bell has rung, give them a circle, give them the time they need to see that thing that they've spooked at, or some time to regain your composure. That really wasn't a bad turn onto the centre line, especially after a spook like that. Traditional baby wobble up the centre line, that's no problem. Again, she stayed pretty well into the contact. You can see Alice turning a little bit early to avoid the spooky cameraman. Lovely, really nice. Pick up a little bit more forwards on the long side if you can, Alice, and then you can just slightly back off in the turn before the centre line again. See, again, in the same spot, we've got a little bit of a look. It's no problem, she was ready for it this time. Good. The more confident these horses get, the more purpose you can ride up that centre line with. If you have the confidence and the ability to really power up those centre lines, it gives the judge confidence in you and hopefully gives them the impetus to start giving you those higher marks straight away.
I do notice when Alice is coming down that centre line, her focus is straight ahead. She's not looking at the horse.
Completely. Every time you take your focus onto the horse's head or neck or ears, it draws the rider's body weight forwards and also inclines the judge to think that the rider is unsure. If you go down that centre line, same old thing, big smile on your face, make sure the judge knows you're happy to be there, and actually give them the confidence. Don't go in apologising for being on that centre line. Go in showing the judge how good your horse is.
So after the centre line, what kind of movements would come next? Would that be when your circles would come in?
Absolutely. It depends on the level of the test. Generally, the lower the number in the series, the more straightforward that test should be. A lot of the early tests will give you enough time to trot maybe the entire length of the long side before introducing the first movement. The later on you go, the sooner that first movement will come up.
And would it be possible to start having a look at the canter and where those movements would take place within the test?
Absolutely. Generally with the canter work in the early tests, it's designed to be picked up between two markers, so you've got a little bit of leeway. So in this case, if you half circle around, Alice, and then look to pick up your canter between the corner marker and C. This again gives you a bit of leeway with a youngster, gives you a bit more time, and if you think they're going to take some time to pick it up, you can ask earlier. If you think they're going to be a little quick, maybe you'll leave that transition a little later. Good. So you can see she's a little bit keen in the canter, that's fine, it's the first one we've had for today. I would much rather in the lower tests see a horse keen to take you forwards than something you have to sit and drive. Again, it shows the judge that that horse is confident to take you forwards and waiting for that next movement.
And what's the smallest size of circle you'd have to do in the canter at this level?
Definitely a 20-metre circle in the canter at prelim. You may be asked sometimes to show half of that circle and come to trot over the centre line, and in the later tests you may even be asked to pick up your canter on the centre line, but 20-metre circle is the most confined movement you'd be asked to provide in the canter.
If you struck off in the incorrect canter lead, how quickly do you need to come back?
Obviously it's going to have a direct effect on the mark itself. Depending on where the movement was designed to be started is how I would influence whether the horse was ready to come back immediately or if I did it at 2 or 3 metres on. So if, in this case where we asked Alice to pick up the canter in the corner, if she'd started early enough and the horse had picked up the wrong lead, she may well have had plenty of time to then come back and pick it up. The further you go through that corner onto the short side, the less likely they are to pick up the correct lead anyway. If she'd been fortunate enough to have been starting a 20-metre circle anywhere soon after, that would have helped massively. So I would let the horse again be my guide. If I felt that they were ready to listen and it was just a genuine baby mistake, then I'd ask them fairly quickly to come back, trot and then canter again.
After the canter, obviously when you come towards the end of the test is when you get the free walks on the long rein. Is there any way that Alice could show us whereabouts those would be and how you should ride them?
Yes, certainly. If you start your 20-metre circle there, Alice, and then as you come towards the C marker, come into what we would say is medium walk. And then we're going to change the rein across the short diagonal, M to E, and move forwards into a free walk from M to E.
So when you say you asked her to come to a medium walk at C, actually what point of C did she have to be in the walk?
The best way to look at it is that if you always take your leg as the guide, so when
Okay.
your leg is in line with that marker, that realistically is when it should begin. Any later, obviously that's a knockdown on the mark that you should receive. If anything, you'd be better off being fractionally early than fractionally late.
Okay, good advice.
That was good. That was a perfectly acceptable free walk for a young horse. It's one of the most dangerous times, when you get to that free walk in a test and you're not confident enough maybe to let go of the horse. The best you can do, so let them out to the point you feel confident and look for that to progress over the next few tests. So if you'd like to get into that 20-metre circle proper from the B and E marker, Alice, we'll move into the centre a bit more so we're not right in your way, and start to show us some of the common errors that people are going to ride.
So where, if we're doing the 20-metre circle at B, where should the top, because obviously you're in the middle of the arena,
Absolutely.
so it's quite hard to tell where she should be starting and finishing.
This comes back again to the rider knowing the arena, and actually it's much more helpful that you know the dimensions of the arena. So know the distances between the markers so that you know exactly how close you should be coming to that VP line, and then again on the other side the SR line. The basic rule obviously is surrounding the X marker on a 20-metre circle, you should be 10 metres away from the X marker on either side. So if you look at the markers of S and R and V and P, they're 12 metres away from that central line.
Okay.
So you should be 2 metres away from each of those lines dissecting the arena. So VP, you should be 2 metres from there. S and R, you should be 2 metres from there. That's pretty much going to guarantee your 20-metre circle. And as you can see, she's actually riding a very accurate 20-metre circle. If you could make it a little bit more oblong, Alice, so that we can show some of the common mistakes. You generally only touch the arena and glance it at the E and B marker on a 20-metre circle. So if somebody starts to spend too long on that long side, so 4, 5, 6 steps, you're suddenly distorting the shape of your circle.
Yeah.
You saw there an early turn, making that side of the half the circle is too small.
And you can actually see how it's disrupted the horse's rhythm as well.
Absolutely, yeah, completely. When a horse knows the degree of bend they require for a set movement, if you set that up, generally they'll follow that for you.
Yeah.
It's when babyish mistakes come in, they'll start slipping through a shoulder or the rider overrides through nerves, you start to have problems occurring.
And do you get problems with people making the circle too big as well?
Very much so. They'll travel too far beyond that VP line. That really is then easy for the judge to see.
Yeah.
It's slightly more difficult if they've gone a little deep, but if you start hitting certain lines where the judge knows the distances of the markers, as demonstrated there, you can really start to then see how easy it is for the judge to then start taking off the odd mark here and there.
So would it be a good idea to actually get off the horse before you even get on, and actually walk the arena, walk your test
Definitely.
on foot?
A lot of people learn tests that way. It depends on the individual. Some people visualise them very well. Some people have to get in here and walk the test itself. In this case, I find it very helpful to actually look at a diagram of the arena and work out the distances. You can then start to break down the arena into sections so that you know exactly where your 20-metre circle should be.
So we can see here that Alice is in a nice, relaxed, comfortable walk, and she's going to be doing the 2 half circles. Again, this is one of the other changes of reins you were talking about.
Yeah, very much so.
What would you be looking for in this?
The biggest thing is obviously that the horse appears equally supple both ways, and it's quite a test in the lower levels that the horse looks the same on both directions, so both reins. In this case, we've got the first half circle on the right rein, the second half circle to the left, and that both the movements are the same size. You can see a little interruption in the walk there,
Yep.
possibly shows that the horse is a little stiffer to the left. All of these little things are for the judge to pick up on the day.
Fantastic. Well, Keith, I think we've seen quite a few movements here today. Absolutely brilliant. And what a fantastic pair they're going to make. I'm sure they're going to be something to look forward to seeing in the future. So this will be all of it today. And next time, we're going to look at how to warm up properly for a prelim test. Thanks, Keith, and thanks to Alice and Amore. And now you know what kind of elements you're going to expect to see in a prelim test. Join us next time when we'll be looking at how to warm up for your prelim test.